Yeah, I was around for the 2008 financial crisis. I was around for 1998 financial crisis. I negotiated that bailout for LTCM. 98 was interesting because it was an acute financial crisis that came very close within hours, actually. And I was in the room with the Treasury and Italian finance ministry and 19 banks and, a thundering herd of lawyers trying to save the world. But we came within hours of shutting every market in the world. If we had not, there was a $4 billion all cash. You couldn't use the word due diligence because there wasn't time. It was just, hey, the Fed wants us to do this, so let's just do it. So that worked, but it was a very close call. They would have shut down Tokyo and then around the world, London and finally New York, and they would have opened days later. But that's how, with trillions of dollars of losses, it would have been worse than what actually happened in 2008. It didn't happen, but there was no economic recession at the time. That confuses a lot of people because, and particularly if you're using 2008 as a frame of reference, there are financial panics and financial crises and liquidity crises, and there are recessions, some of which are severe. But they're two different things. 98 was an acute financial crisis with no recession. 2000 was a mild recession, but there was no severe financial crisis. Now, NASDAQ collapsed, but there wasn't a lot of leverage in NASDAQ. There was no contagion there. Yeah, if you owned, I forget, I think it was pets.com with the sock puppet, if you, JDSU, if you owned that stuff, you lost all your money. But it didn't spread because no banks failed, no major brokerages failed, et cetera. So in 1990, a mild recession, but no financial panic. October 1987, interesting, stock market fell 22% in one day. Not a week or a month, but one day, down 22%. And that was a financial crisis, but there was no recession. So they're separate things. However, they can happen together. And 2008 was an example. There we had an acute financial crisis, and the names. Bear Stearns failed in March of 2008. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac failed in June of 2008. Then Congress bailed them out. And I was working on the McCain campaign at the time. And I remember I was on a call, the economic team, and everybody was high-fiving, like, hey, the financial crisis is over. Now we can get back to talking about the Iraq war, which is what they really wanted to talk about. And I was, I guess I play my usual role of messing things up. But I said, hold on. I said, this isn't over. You're not going to make it to election day without a much bigger failure. And I didn't say like September 15th at midnight. That was Lehman Brothers. But everybody knew that Lehman Brothers was the weak link. They always had been. They were the weak link in 1998. So I said, you're not going to make it to election day without a major crisis. And so get your guy ready, come up with a 4-point plan. Doesn't matter what the points are, just make them up, but get the guy on the steps of the Treasury the day it happens to give the 4-point plan, and he'll reassure the American people, and you'll win the election. I was left off the call. I was not invited back. That was at a very short tenure as a political advisor. So then, sure enough, September 15th, the crisis comes. John McCain runs around like a chicken with his head off. He's, doesn't know what to do, barges into the White House, and President Bush said, well, we're in the middle of a campaign. I can't let McCain come in without bringing in Obama. So they did. They had McCain, Obama, Bush, and the economic advisors in the cabinet room. And Obama didn't know any more than McCain, but he was smart enough to keep his mouth shut. And people looked at it. McCain looked scared, and Obama looked cool. And so, if you look at the polls, that McCain was ahead in the polls until that weekend, and then Obama pulled ahead and stayed ahead and won the election. And that was the turning point. It was not Sarah Palin or the debates or all the things people in Washington want to talk about. It was the financial crisis and McCain's kind of panicked reaction. So there we had both, and then Lehman Brothers, September 15th. And then Morgan Stanley was days away from collapsing. Dick Fuld kept calling John Mack to have Morgan Stanley bail out Lehman, and Mack's like, no, we're worried about Morgan Stanley. We're on the ropes now, and Goldman would not have been far behind, and so forth. And the Fed truncated that by making Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs bank holding companies. So then they could bail them out because they were banks. I've worked on Fed applications that took 2 years to get done. That was done in about 2 hours, but they can do what they want when they have to.